NFL chase or fade, guys. Agree or disagree with the following statements about Week 15 in the NFL. We'll start in Buffalo here. The Bills have lost 3 of their last 4, but Josh Allen put up north of 42 fantasy points on Sunday in that loss to Tampa. So he comes into the Sunday slate as the highest priced quarterback on the board. The Bills will host the Panthers in that one. So chase or fade that it's worth paying up for Allen this week, Steve.
Yeah, I just can't do it. I mean, Josh Allen is the most expensive quarterback on the slate. The Bills are double-digit favorites, and now we have a walking wounded Josh Allen coming into this slate. Like, even if he does play, how much is he realistically going to have to do if the Bills are actually going to win this game by double digits? Is he going to be running the ball with the turf toe? Most likely not. So you take away some of that upside. What if the Bills go up early in this one? Do they want to try to save Allen for, and get healthy here? There's just a lot of red flags in this one here. Now, do you want to use Josh Allen in a tournament? Because everything I'm saying is likely going to drive the ownership down, of course. But in like a cash game lineup, like Allen is just too risky, especially when you consider guys that are priced below him, guys like Aaron Rodgers against the Ravens, even Stafford against a very vulnerable Seattle secondary. Just doesn't make sense to go to Allen in this game.
All right, does it make sense to go to Allen here and pay up for him, Matt?
I think it could, but really, yeah, like Steve said, GPPs only. Like, I don't think Allen is your cash game quarterback this week. He has an injury concern like a number of other quarterbacks too, though. So Aaron Rodgers, I think we're assuming he's still going to keep going out there. Lamar Jackson, maybe a little more iffy. But I think it's just going to be easy enough to find quarterback upside for less money. So maybe Allen does deserve to be the most expensive, but I think where I'm looking is just you don't need to pay up for any of these guys. Like Kyler Murray, 7,900, fine choice also. I don't think you need to pay up for him either because we have guys like maybe Dak Prescott or Jimmy Garoppolo or Tua this week. Like, I think there are a lot of good options that are significantly cheaper. So Allen maybe is the best fantasy quarterback, but I don't think you need him this week.
All right, Pearce, let's say someone's watching right now. They have $20. They're going to drop it. They're going to enter the Millie Maker on Sunday. Do you think that they have to have Josh Allen in there?
Have to is a strong word, but it could be wise to chase in that Millie Maker. As these guys mentioned, the ownership is going to be really low. And if you're just going to put one lineup in, then yeah, you do want to kind of deviate from the field and do something a little different. I think we all expect Buffalo to possibly score 30, 35, maybe 40 points against Carolina. I know they have a good defense, but so did Tampa Bay, and Buffalo was able to put points on the board. And if Buffalo puts points on the board, all points go through Josh Allen. And Steve's right. He's probably not going to rush for 100 yards. But all those touchdowns are going to come through the air of Josh Allen, or he's going to run the ball in the red zone. They don't have a running game. They don't have running backs. They don't give the ball to running backs. They're probably going to pass a lot, which is more points for him. I think that he can get you 35, 40 points on any given slate, no matter the matchup. You're going to get really low ownership. So, yeah, if you're throwing in one lineup, definitely give him a hard look.
Hey, Matty, Zeke Elliott has not scored 20 or more fantasy points since Week 10 against Atlanta, but despite that, he's still the second highest priced running back this week. They're at the Giants. He did score north of 28 fantasy points against New York the first time around. So chase or fade that Zeke will have another great game against the G-Men.
I think the answer that I think is the most likely is that he doesn't have a great game, but I do think there's a really wide range of outcomes here. One, Tony Pollard may be back this week, which would hurt Zeke's volume. And then if the Cowboys get off to a big lead, I think we see Corey Clement play a bunch of snaps. This is what happened last week. The Cowboys were up big on Washington. Zeke was playing well in the first half, but didn't really see the field in the third quarter and much of the fourth quarter either until Washington made it a one-score game. And then I think the Cowboys realized, all right, let's get Zeke back out there because they're taking it easy on him. He's not 100% either. He's been dealing with a knee injury. So if the game is close and the Giants keep pace, I think, and also if Pollard's out, I think then Zeke could have a monster game. But there are a lot of variables here, and there are a lot of ways that it doesn't work out. So I think I'd rather I'd certainly say that some of the other guys are safer choices than Zeke this week.
Is there, you agree with that, Pearce? Other guys are much safer than Zeke this week.
Yeah, far safer. This is a fade for me. There's just too many red flags. I get it. The Giants have a terrible run defense, and that really opens the door to, or at least allows Elliott to be the second most expensive running back on this slate. But he's not healthy. The Cowboys are taking it easy with him. The offensive line is not healthy. Tyron Smith is out. And you look at Elliott's numbers and that offense's numbers in general, when Tyron Smith is not playing, there is a significant fall off. That's going to hurt him. As we already mentioned, maybe Pollard comes back. Clement played 31 snaps last week, and he was fine in that role. Will he play 31 again this week? Maybe. This looks like a game where they should be up pretty healthy with a lead, so he should play. And even if the game's close, I think he proved last week that he deserves plenty of snaps and can play, a change of pace role against Ezekiel Elliott. So I don't understand going to him at all.
Do you understand going to him, Steve? Is he worth paying up for with this matchup?
I mean, absolutely not. I mean, these guys hit on it. Like Clement having 13 carries last week. I mean, that's really all I need to know. Like they're doing 50-50 regardless of who's behind Zeke or not, whether it be Pollard, whether it be Clement. Like that's just what they're doing at this point. So I can't trust that Zeke is going to have a good game here. Even when he's getting the carries, he's not been overly efficient with the ball. Like there is nothing that he's done that says this guy deserves to be the second most expensive running back on this slate. This is such an easy fade for me here. If I get beat by Ezekiel Elliott this week, so be it. I have no problem saying that the right call was to fade him at his salary with how inefficient he's been. So if he beats me, he beats me, but this is an easy fade for me.
All right, well, Cooper Kupp, we all know this. He's having a ridiculous season on the field and in fantasy as well for the Rams. He's averaging north of 27 fantasy points per game. But this week, LA is hosting Seattle, who held Kupp to a second lowest fantasy point output this season. That was just like 16 back in week 5. So chase or fade for me here, Pearce, that this is a week to avoid Kupp in your lineups.
No, you fade that. You've got to play Cooper Kupp. I mean, just make it simple. He gets open better than any receiver in the league. He's getting targeted more than any receiver in the league. I don't make it any more complicated. We can debate ownership and game scripts and matchups all we want. But if you just boil it down, and we've got plenty large enough of a sample size on the season, he gets open. He's separating from his defenders, and Matthew Stafford is constantly feeding him the ball. What more can you ask for? If you've got the money, put Kupp in there. There's no one safer at this point.
Do you agree, Steve? No one's safer at this position. I mean, the numbers really don't lie here.
I mean, the team that held Cooper Kupp's to the lowest fantasy output of the season was the Cardinals. Then he goes and plays them a second time, makes 13 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown, scores 34.3 DraftKings fantasy points. This guy is just a whole different breed at this point. Like can you fade him because of the salary? Yes. Do you want to fade him because of the salary? No, because even at $9K, he's still returning value on his salary. This guy just cannot be stopped at this point. And with the amount that Stafford is going towards him, Odell Beckham, by the way, does have COVID. So what's his status? If he's out, I mean, can you give this guy any more targets? Maybe at this point, which is actually absurd to say. But truly, if they're down a couple more receivers, the Rams, Kupp's just going to keep going. So give me Cooper Kupp. I don't even care. He's 12,000, whatever. I don't care. Just give him me.
Yeah, Rams getting hammered right now by COVID. Matt, you got to pay up for Cooper Kupp this week?
Yeah, I agree. He's still too cheap at $9,000. Like this should be a 5-figure salary for him. So the conversation is then, do you want to play him in tournaments where he's going to still be really popular, even as the most expensive receiver on the board? That one I'm a little less sure of because I think with Odell Beckham out, I think people will gravitate here. I think this could be a popular game too. The Seahawks side of the game is not especially expensive. And now the point spread for this game is closing in too because of the Rams' COVID concerns. So I think this could become a pretty popular stack target. So maybe you don't want to play Kupp in tournaments if he's the most popular player on the entire slate. But for cash games, I mean, he's just a lock. Like, I don't think that this is much of a debate. I think he's a much better fantasy receiver, and especially this week than guys like Adams and Samuel and Stephon Diggs. Like, he's more than worth the salary. It's just kind of a what is everyone else going to do consideration for me.
Feels like Ravens tight end Mark Andrews is like the Cooper Kupp of the tight end department, at least like in recent weeks. Has 10 or more targets in 4 of his last 6 contests. Second highest price tight end on the slate this week. There's some injury concerns, obviously, with Lamar Jackson. I believe Harbaugh said earlier he's not even going to practice today, but they do expect him to go with that ankle injury. All right, Chaser Fade Andrews, another high volume spot here in week 15 against Green Bay. Steve.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot because he's sandwiched in between George Kittle, who just came off that ridiculous game from last week, and Kyle Pitts in a game that the Falcons are going to be always playing from behind with. But at least Pitts has been a little bit more sustainable as of late. That being said, like, the tight end position has just been so flushed with value that I just can't do it to keep paying up at this position here. And it's going to keep doing that too if these COVID issues keep running rampant. Like, guys like Gerald Everett, who, didn't have a great game last week, but the amount of targets that he's been seeing at 3,500 in a game that the Seahawks should be playing from behind in. James O'Shaughnessy's back in the mix. He's getting some decent targets. Like, it's just so much easier to pay down a tight end so that you can afford some of these other guys like a Cooper Kupp, or if you're going to, go a little bit off the board and take Josh Allen as the most expensive quarterback this week. I can't do it at the tight end position. I'm going to keep staying down in that mid 3K range. I think that's where you got to do it at tight end.
All right, Matt, what about you, man? You got to pay up for this dude.
I don't know that you have to. I do think this should be another high volume spot. And I actually do think that's the case regardless of who the quarterback is. When Tyler Huntley has started, Andrews has still gotten plenty of volume, if not more, because Huntley is just not going to run as much as Lamar Jackson does. The efficiency of the offense certainly drops, but the targets are still going to be there. I actually like Andrews for GPPs this week because we already talked about Kupp and we kind of talked about Allen and Stephon Diggs. I think that this game goes overlooked a bit. I think people are going to be scared off by the injury concerns for the two quarterbacks, and playing Lamar or Rodgers with, let's say, Mark Andrews and Devontae Adams, like as a stack. I think that could be a way to go where the field just isn't doing it. So I don't think you pay up for Andrews in cash games, but I do think in tournaments, I don't think a lot of people are playing him. So that's kind of why I like him this week.
Yeah, and Pearce, I know most people would prefer Lamar to be the one throwing darts to him, but Tyler Huntley fed the star tight end well in relief.
Yeah, I'll chase the volume, and you look at the last time that Huntley played, it was double-digit targets, so that's fine, and the volume will be there, but with the tight end position, the game is always the same. You're chasing a touchdown. Yeah, Andrews has a higher probability of getting in the end zone than some of these cheaper tight ends, but he still has to get into the end zone, and I would rather take the savings, wouldn't take any of the guys that Steve mentioned and hope that I nailed the touchdown right, and then take that money and then spend it on Cooper Kupp or spend it on another position where I can get higher output. Because Andrews can get you 7 catches for 70 yards, and that's not really going to help you. You can get 10 targets. He's got to get into the end zone. If he doesn't, well, then you're toast. I'd rather chase touchdowns from the cheapies.